Someone gives you a strange look across the room, and for the next 3 hours, your brain replays it like a crime scene investigation. A friend doesn't text back in time, and suddenly you're convinced you did something wrong. A stranger cuts you off in traffic, and your whole mood shifts, like they reached into your chest and pulled a switch. Here's the strange part. None of these people were thinking about you at all, and yet you handed them the power to control your entire day. This is what it means to take things personally, and it is quietly one of the most exhausting habits a human mind can develop. Today we're going to break down exactly why your brain does this, and more importantly, how to build a version of yourself that simply cannot be shaken by other people's words, moods, or opinions. Not because you stop caring, but because you finally understand something most people never figure out. Let's start with the truth nobody tells you. Taking things personally has almost nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with how your brain interprets uncertainty. When someone acts distant, insults you, or ignores you, your mind doesn't like the blank space. It rushes to fill that gap with a story. And that story almost always makes it about you. This is called the negativity bias, an ancient survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, misreading a threat could get you killed. So your brain evolved to assume the worst first and ask questions later. The problem is, that same wiring built for spotting predators is now firing off every time someone gives you a flat reply on a group chat. Here's something worth sitting with. Every single action another person takes comes from their own internal world. Their mood, their past, their fears, their exhaustion, their unresolved history that has nothing to do with you. A rude comment from a stranger usually isn't about you. It's a leftover reaction from something that happened to them an hour earlier. A friend's silence probably isn't rejection. It might just be a hard week you know nothing about. When you take something personally, you are essentially assuming you are the main character in someone else's private storm. And most of the time, you're not even a side character. You just happen to be standing there. This is where a mental shift becomes powerful. Psychologists call it the fundamental attribution error, our tendency to explain other people's behavior through their character, while explaining our own behavior through our circumstances. If you snap at someone, you say you were tired or stressed. If someone snaps at you, you assume they're rude or that you did something wrong. The moment you realize everyone is walking around with the same invisible weight you carry, their reactions stop feeling like verdicts on your worth and start feeling like glimpses into their own private battle. Once you truly absorb this, arguments feel different. Silence feels different. Even blunt messages feel different, because you start reading them as information about the sender rather than a scorecard about you. Now let's talk about the real reason people take things personally: low self-definition. If you don't have a clear, steady sense of who you are, then other people's opinions become the mirror you check yourself in. Every comment, every tone of voice, every raised eyebrow becomes data you use to decide your own value. But the moment you build an identity that isn't dependent on external validation, something shifts. Someone can criticize you and it simply won't stick, because you're no longer asking their opinion to tell you who you are. You already know. Think about the most emotionally solid people you've ever met. They're not untouchable because nothing ever gets said to them. They're untouchable because they've separated their identity from other people's perception. Somebody could insult them in a room full of people, and they'd respond with calm curiosity instead of a wounded reaction. Because their sense of self was never built on that person's approval in the first place. They know exactly what they value, what they stand for, and what kind of person they're trying to become. And that internal clarity acts like a shield. No outside comment can easily pierce. So how do you actually build this? The first shift is learning to pause before reacting. When something stings, your amygdala fires instantly, faster than your rational thinking can catch up. That sting is not truth. It's a chemical alarm bell. The moment you feel that spike, silently ask yourself one question. Is this about me, or is this about them? 9 times out of 10, you'll realize it's about the other person's stress, insecurity, or bad day, not an accurate reflection of your worth. The second shift is understanding the difference between feedback and judgment. Feedback is useful information about your actions. Judgment is someone else's emotional reaction, wrapped in the disguise of truth. Learn to filter incoming words through this lens. If a comment gives you something you can actually improve, take it and use it. If a comment is just someone venting their own frustration onto you, let it pass through you like wind through an open window. Don't grab it. Don't hold it. let it move on. The third shift, and probably the most powerful one, is detachment from the need to be understood by everyone. You will never control how people perceive you. Some will misread your intentions no matter what you do. Some will project their insecurities onto you. Some will simply be having a bad day and take it out on the nearest person, who happens to be you. Once you accept that you cannot manage everyone's interpretation of you, you stop performing for approval and start living from your own internal compass instead. There's also a quiet exercise worth trying. The next time someone says something that stings, instead of asking, "Why did they say that about me?" ask, "What must be happening in their life to make them say that?" This single shift in questioning takes you out of the victim seat and puts you into the observer seat. From there, you're no longer reacting emotionally, you're studying human behavior. And that alone creates enough distance to stop the sting from sinking in. Here's something most people overlook. The people who take things the most personally are often the ones who care the most, which is not a weakness, it's proof of empathy. The goal isn't to stop caring or to become cold and distant. The goal is to care deeply while protecting your inner peace fiercely. You can be a kind, warm, emotionally aware person and still refuse to let every offhand comment dictate your mood for the rest of the day. In fact, the people who master this balance often become better friends, better partners, and better listeners. Because they're no longer reacting from a wounded place, they're responding from a grounded one. Building this kind of emotional armor takes practice, not perfection. You will still feel that flash of sting sometimes. That's human. The difference is what happens next. Instead of spiraling for hours, you notice the feeling, question its origin, and release it faster each time. Over weeks, this becomes your default response instead of the exception. Imagine walking through your day knowing that nobody's tone, comment, or mood can shake your sense of self. Imagine responding to criticism with curiosity instead of defensiveness. Imagine letting other people's bad days stay their bad days instead of adopting them as your own. That's not emotional numbness. That's emotional mastery. And it's available to anyone willing to separate their identity from other people's opinions. So, starting today, the next time someone's words or actions sting, pause before reacting. Ask yourself whether this is truly about you or about the storm happening inside them. Protect your peace, not by shutting people out, but by refusing to let their moods define your worth. That's how you become someone words can no longer control. If this gave you a new way of seeing things, hit like and subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. And before you go, here's a question worth sitting with. What's one thing someone said to you recently that you're still carrying? And is it really about you at all?